so much for being here with us today.
Good to be here, Jenny.
I want to introduce you to Brian Stolick, a dear friend. Known Brian for about 5 years or 6 years since I've been involved at the Senior Center. Today you are here with us at the Senior Center. We are social distancing, and every day we try to bring you programs that we think will help you engage with age and have a greater understanding of what's going on today with COVID-19 and maybe how you can adjust to where we are. Today, Brian is going to talk to us about some financial issues. We've called this program today Seniors and the Stock Market. So Brian, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and why don't you tell me how you and I first met?
Oh, sure. Well, my wife and I moved down here from New Jersey. She's from New Jersey, got a little Jersey accent. We've been married this fall 35 years, and we have 5 children, and moved down here in it'll be 7 years ago this fall. And actually, no, I think it's 6 years. 6 years this fall. And we just got involved, trying to get involved in the community, Wake Forest Chamber of Commerce, heard about the Senior Center, talked to Miranda about it, just asked how we could volunteer. I don't remember exactly the first day we met, but it might have been one of the events you put on. Our family was volunteering, helping out with the meals or something like that.
Yeah. Well, not only does Brian volunteer, but his whole family does. All of his children, they help to serve meals. They've met families that are caregivers. I've never seen such a family that I've been more impressed with. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you here, because to me, your perspective comes not just from just helping people make money or having people make money and you making money. Your perspective comes from your caring heart and from what you do for this population. So tell us a little bit about your education, your background.
Sure. Well, originally, actually, I was a seminary graduate, not at Wake Forest here at Southeastern, but a school down in Dallas, Texas, but similar to Southeastern. So I had a background. Thought I was heading to full-time ministry, as often happens. God had different plans. And then I started at Merrill Lynch in 2000 in New Jersey. And if you remember the years, that's the year the market started to come down. So I was there the entire decade of 2000, 2009, that tough decade in the stock market. And then I went independent after Merrill Lynch was taken over by Bank of America. And since then, I had a little bit different perspective after seeing the stock market and a lot of the pain that it caused a lot of folks, particularly those who were retired. So my focus has been a little bit different since then. So I've actually been in Wall Street pretty intensely, and now somewhat outside of Wall Street. So I have a perspective on pros and cons of both ends of things.
You've had some articles in Forbes, haven't you?
Different online, the Wall Street Journal online, and several other news sources on my website. It shows the different articles that have been published that I've read.
Yeah, and Princeton was involved in your career somewhere.
Well, my educational background originally was Princeton University for 2 years, and then I transferred. I'm from Michigan originally, and transferred to the University of Michigan. If you're a Wolverine fan, that's a good thing, football.
Yeah.
And then graduated in 1985 from the University of Michigan.
Wow. So pretty diverse background.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, we're glad to have you here. My first question, can we start with a couple of questions?
Sure.
I find myself, this is the third one of these time periods I've been through with financial downturn.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing like this before, however. And this is what I'm doing to my 541. I don't even want to look at it. I just am very blessed at this time of my life. I'm 67 years old, that I have a job.
Mm-hmm.
So for so many of my friends and counterparts, they don't. Mm-hmm. And it's not looking good. So with that, I'm going to start my first question to you. Should I sell, hold, or buy more during turbulent times? Should seniors be invested in the stock market? And how should their investment strategy differ now that they are retired?
All good questions. We're going to kind of walk through those. I'm going to try to give you a broad overview for those who are listening. Kind of what's happening now, what's happened in the past, what might happen in the future, and just try to give you my objective opinion on what seniors should do. Now, I heard a story of a woman who was married, and she said, before, she said she made her husband a millionaire. And the person asked, really, what was he before that? She said, a billionaire. Now, so some people maybe have gone from being a billionaire to a millionaire, or their 401k feels like a 201k, right?
Yeah.
So a lot has happened. I mean, this has been, again, I started Merrill Lynch in 2000. So the two other downturns we're talking about are 2000 to 2002, 3 years, and then 2008 to part of 2009. And tremendous downturns during those times. And this has topped even those in terms of the rapidity, how fast the market has come down in different days. It's just been mind-blowing for people to watch. So one of the things that people are wondering, we've had some great gains too. So today is Friday, April 17th. For those of you who are watching, I'm not sure what day you're watching this, but what's happening now? The market's up this morning. What's going to happen Monday? Who knows? Last week it had its tremendous gains, one of the best weeks ever since the Great Depression. And so what's going to happen? We don't know. But right now, we're in the midst of this. If you look at the numbers, we're down about 20% from where the peak was a few months back. And at one point, it was down 37% from the high point to the low point. Just in the last, couple months, it dropped that far in that quick amount of time. So it's pretty tense.
Yeah.
Right? So now one of the things that people are asking is, what do I need to do to get back to even? What percentage do I need to get back to even? So we're going to show you a little slide here, Jenny. I'll pass it over to you. Well, let me ask you a question.
Uh-oh.
Now, this could be a tough question. If she gets it wrong, that's okay. A lot of people get this wrong. Let's say you have a $100,000 investment, and you're down 50%. Real quick, what percentage do you need to get back to even?
Well, the obvious answer is 50%, but sometimes.
The obvious answer is not always the right
I was
answer.
going to say, but that's not
Well,
right.
9 times out of 10, 50%. Let's do the math.
Yeah.
Okay. You're 100,000 down to 50,000. If you get 50% return on 50,
75. Yeah. Duh. That was a trick.
Right. It is a kind of a trick question. So what percentage do you need to get back to even? You need 100% of 50,000. So some of these people wondering, hey, my market was down 37%, then it zoomed up 45%. How come I'm not back to even or even more? That's why. So this chart that a lot of you are seeing on the screen now, if you're down 20%, you need 25% to get back to even. If you're down 40%, you need 67% to get back to even. If you're down 60%, you need 150% to get back to even. And that explains why it takes so long sometimes to get back to where you were. Now we're zooming back right now. We don't know what the future is going to hold. But in 2000 to 2002, and also in 2008, 2009, the next chart I will show you here, Jenny, this graph here, that shows you what happened historically there. So they had a couple circles there that shows you the top part in 2008, and it dropped the stock market about 40% in about a year's time or so. And then you look at the next circle upwards, I circled that. That's how long it took to get back to even.
Wow.
And it's about 4 or 5 years, depending on what you're invested in.
Now, those of you that are watching this will be seeing this in a PowerPoint alongside as,
Right, so hopefully you're seeing that on the screen.
Yeah.
You can see how the first circle is where the high hit in 2008, how it dropped. And then in 2009, it started recovering. It took about 4 or 5 years to get back to even. And of course, since then, the years since then, tremendous upside in the market, and then it came down hard, sharp at the end. You can see there on the chart of 2020. Now, in 2000 to 2002, the same thing happened where it came down, but it came down over about 3 years. Okay? Again, this is the year I started Merrill Lynch, in the year 2000. This is after the booming 90s when everyone thought everything's different now. Nothing's going to be going to come down. It's all going to be on the upside. Came down hard, and then the third year came down. So it took 3 years to get down to where it was, and then about 4 or 5 years to get back to where it was. So you're talking about a 7, 8 year period total to get back, because it took 3 years to get down, and then 4 or 5 years later. So one of the things we're going to talk about later is, should seniors be in the stock market, is going to be, you got to think of the time frame of how long these things can take just to get back to where you were. Does that make sense, Jen?
Yeah. Well, one of the things as someone who's worked with the aging population, of which I've been one. When people say seniors, that's a big definition now of time, because there are people that are called the, seniors, older seniors, and the older old seniors.
Mhm.
So, sometimes maybe if you could put more age, like if you're 65, if you're 85, because they're all seniors.
Sure.
Know what I'm saying? So
Sure.
when somebody says the word to me, senior, it's going to be a lot different at me at 65 than it is for me a senior at 85.
So we're going to talk about that in a few minutes about what your seniors do
Okay.
now.
Okay.
That's a good point to bring up. So that's what's happened in the past, okay? And what about the future? In terms of where the stock market has come back quickly just recently, but not back to where it was, the highest point. As far as what the future holds, any guess what I might say, Jenny? We haven't talked about this before.
No, you don't know.
Nobody really knows.
Yeah.
So I'm going to show a few quotes here, okay? And so I'm going to ask you, guess when this was said. I don't expect you to know this. But
Jeez.
And this person was a professor of economics of Yale University, a big shot in his time. He said the end of the decline of the stock market will probably not be long, only a few more days at most. Well, guess what? That was in 1929. After the stock market, it just kind of come down. The decline's gonna not be long, only a few more days at most. Well, guess what? Now is another decade of bad stock market returns. Here's another one from a president. Gentlemen, you have come 60 days too late. The Depression is over. President Hoover, June 1930. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Those quotes are there. So here's a few more that are recent. In December of 07, so remember 08 is when the market started crashing down. One stock strategist, a well-known stock strategist, said stocks are at a bargain. His recommendation, buy financial stocks, which was the absolute worst place to be at that time. As the experts. Now, how about some of our leaders in D.C. during 2008? So Barney Frank, who was the chairman of the House Financial Services Committee, said in July 14, 2008, before things started heading south, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae are fundamentally sound. I think they're in good shape going forward.
And next, what happened?
So it doesn't give you a lot of confidence, does it?
No.
Okay. And so here's one of the challenges too. You read a lot of these words. You ever do this? You Google any topic. Financial, political, religious, health. You come up with a whole range of opinions. And you're asking yourself, who do I listen to? Right? And what's difficult is finding an objective voice, because people have biases or a certain thing. Maybe someone's trying to sell a book and they have a certain bias or something, or who knows what. So it's hard to figure out what do I do with these different topics, right? So the next slide up here, it's interesting, and this is a question, is Wall Street bias or Wall Street advisors bias? Well, this gentleman used to work for Merrill Lynch when I was at Merrill Lynch, David Rosenberg, well-known economist. And he said in 2010, quote, the way to preserve your job on Wall Street as a research analyst is to play it safe and tell people what they want to hear.
Yikes.
Yikes is right. So, we're both trying to be supporters for all ages, but particularly for seniors, and be looking out for seniors and be watching out for whether it's scams or biases or whatnot. So again, it makes it a challenge for seniors, who do you listen to and so forth. So going forward, one thing about the stock market always looks ahead. So like this morning, the news was they had a drug that came out, I forget the name, they had a good trial, promising trial. So at least when I left my house this morning, the futures were up, stock market was going to be up today. Now, we don't know if Monday they're going to come back with some other news and it's going to come flying down. But the stock market always looks ahead. The stock market could possibly come roaring back like it has in the last few weeks, but it doesn't mean the economy will, right? That makes sense?
Yeah.
So right now, what's on your mind thinking about what's the tough things that are going to be facing the economy as far as a recovery going forward?
My mind, Do you mean specific to my scenario?
No, just in general in our country, in our world even.
Retirement, where people are gonna live, how they're gonna eat.
Right. I mean, just in
Education,
terms of the virus and what's happening.
yeah, but a lot of those are true anyways. I mean, I look at the educational system and where that was and where it was going before this happened.
Mm-hmm. That's a big change.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, so there are lots.
So obviously, a lot of people out of work, and we're not sure how fast those jobs are going to come back and so forth. You have a lot of folks not paying their mortgage or rent. You have all these pressures going on there. So economically, again, the stock market could rise up quick with the hope of recovery, but economically, you might find it's a real struggle recovering. Of course, Congress passed a $2 trillion package there that has not our national debt with probably more to come. So that puts a tremendous strain. You have people sometimes selling out of their stock market accounts to pay their bills. Well, that's selling out of the stock market, it's not buying. If you're struggling economically, financially, you're not going to be investing as much in the stock market. So you got a lot of factors there. So the reality is, you're going to hear, and again, you can go on a news station or Google or whatever. Some people are going to tell you this is the stock market's going to come zooming back, and you're going to hear just the opposite opinion. And no one really knows. That's the conclusion I came to when I was at Merrill Lynch for 2000, 2009. A lot of the smartest people out there, and a lot of times they were dead wrong. So it makes it difficult. So, what do you do? Well, here's some guidelines here, Jenny, on what should seniors do. One is consider your age. Now you said, well, senior, I'm 58. I don't know, I started getting AARP mailers when I was 50. Right away, I threw them in the garbage. What are you doing? I'm 50 years old. Give me a few years, will you? I think right now I can get Bojangles discounts as a senior discount.
Yeah, you can come to the senior center.
I can come to the senior center at 55, 58.
55.
55, you can, 58.
Yeah.
So there's a big range. Consider this. The last time the mark came down was about 11 years ago. You said you're 67? Mm-hmm. Okay, I didn't say that. You said it. Okay, I didn't ask you.
Yeah.
You were 56 the last time the market came down hard. A lot of things have changed.
Yeah.
So do your math. Those of you who are listening, you're 75 years old. You were 64. Wow. Things have changed. So a lot of you were working, and now a lot of you are retired or part-time or so forth. So it's a different animal in terms of that. So consider your age. Next factor is, when do you need this money? If you're in the stock market, when do you need the money? Well, maybe you're already withdrawing money out there. It happened maybe for a few years. Something we're going to talk about, because when we're drawing down on accounts, it's very different than waiting and letting the markets bounce back. So remember I said in the year 2000, it took how many years for the market to come down? 3 years.
Yeah.
And then about 4 or 5 years to come back. So we're talking about a 7-8 year period. And if you need to draw down that money during that time, selling when the market's down is the absolute worst thing you want to do. But some people have no choice. They need the money.
Right. And
So
question their lifetimes.
Now you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. What do I do? So I'm not giving any pat answers here. There's just the reality people have to deal with. But you have to look at number of years when you need the money. Okay? So I'm going to show you a handout here. And this shows you what we call a sequence of return risk, fancy term for. When you start withdrawing money out of your account, is the market down right away the first couple, 2-3 years, or is it up right away? And basically no one can control that, right? It's just a matter of what happens. So this first chart here, it shows a Mr. Green and a Mr. Brown. So Mr. Green chart is on the left-hand side, and Mr. Brown is on the right-hand side. And if you notice, I circled and highlighted in yellow. They both start with how much, Jenny?
$1 million.
$1 million. Now, maybe your money is $100,000 or $500,000, whatever it may be. The principle is the same, okay? And if you notice the returns for Mr. Green on the left-hand side, they start initially up, right?
Yeah.
5%, 28%, 22%. And Mr. Brown, they start initially down, right?
Yeah.
And look at the bottom during the last year, say 25-year period. Look at the bottom, Mr. Green, it's down at the last 3 years, and Mr. Brown's up. What we actually did there on this chart is did a flip-flop. So if you notice, Mr. Green's last 3 years, -10, -14, -25. You look at Mr. Brown's top of the list there, that's the first 3 years are down. So all those numbers are the same, they're just in different order. See? And the bottom it says average return is what, Jenny?
6%.
6%, okay? And at the end, they have how much money? The same or different?
The same.
They have the same amount of money because they got 6% average return. The numbers were just flip-flop. The key on this chart here is they were not withdrawing money. So really important. If you're not withdrawing money and you can ride these things out.
Up and down.
Pardon me?
You can ride them up and down.
Right. Then it's not a big deal. So
Yeah.
depends what age you are. Of course, someone who's working, they're 45 years old, they're not planning on touching the money for 20 years, no big deal. Maybe you're 65, but you really don't need the money. So it's no big deal. Maybe you're 75, you don't need the money. In fact, one of my most aggressive clients in New Jersey, he's passed away now. He was 84 years old. He was one of my most aggressive clients. Here's why. He had this great pension. He had more money than he knew what to do with. The stocks he had were going to go to his kids. He didn't care. So he just wrote it up and down, no big deal. A lot of folks are not in that situation. So you got to look at your situation. Do you need the money or not? So the next chart here we're going to show you, Jenny, is what happens in the same scenario with the same return, except both Mr. Green and Mr. Brown are taking out a 5% initial withdrawal. So off $1 million, that's $50,000. So look at Mr. Green first. He starts off again with good up years.
Yep.
He's taking out, you see that $50,000 on the left-hand column going down.
Yes.
But he ends up with how much money?
At the very end?
Yes.
2,517,000.
So money actually grew, 2.5 million, not bad for taking out 50,000. Well, Mr. Brown had bad timing. His first 3 years were down, similar to 2000 to 2002, or it could all be 1 year, like 2008, 2009, it's pretty much 1 year. And he takes out the same amount of money, but what happens, Jenny? What do you notice?
He ends up with zero.
At zero, what age?
It's zero at 83.
At 83. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
One ended up with 2.5 million, grew from 1 million to 2.5. The other one ended up running out of money before 20 years is over.
But they both took out the same amount, right?
Same amount. It all has to do with how lucky you are or trusting the sovereign hand of God, whether the market was down when you first started withdrawing or when it was up. Now again, some people have no choice. They retired at a certain year and they needed the money. And guess what? Their retirement year might have been the year 2000. We probably know a lot of people back then who were working. And what happened? They either had to go back to work or find a second job or cut down drastically on their lifestyle expenses because that kind of scenario blows them right up to pieces.
Yeah.
Okay? So it shows if you're withdrawing money, you've got a major situation to consider in terms of what to do about the stock market. Now, to add to that, people have different money in different things. If you're in stocks, okay, it's going to be more aggressive. If you're in bonds, what I'm talking about here is bond funds, which don't have a maturity date. Like you can buy a government bond for a 10-year bond fund, 10-year government bond, you can hang on at the end of 10 years, you get your money back like a CD. But most people, for your 401ks or IRAs, whatever, you have mutual funds, which are bond funds. Any of you know what ETFs are, same kind of thing. And bonds can go down also. In fact, we saw that in the last couple months. Both stocks and bonds went down. Now, normally, I'll show you this chart here. And maybe a little bit different. Hopefully, we can blow that up a bit on the screen. And a lot of you have been involved in investing, have seen these kind of charts. On the left-hand side is a conservative allocation. And the right-hand side is a aggressive allocation. And all we're really doing is saying, okay, what percentage of your money is in stocks? What percentage in bonds? And then how much you might have in cash?
Mm-hmm.
The stocks being the more aggressive, the bonds being less aggressive, and the cash, steady. Not earning much, but steady. And the right-hand side, if someone's going to be aggressive, they're going to be maybe 80 to 100% in stocks. On the left-hand side, they might be 80 to 100% in bonds. And the way it's supposed to work is this, Jenny. When stocks are down, bonds are up. When stocks are up, bonds are down. So you have a mixture.
Equalizer.
They tend to balance each other out. And oftentimes that's what happens. Well, in 2008, here I was working in the field, in the stock market in Merrill Lynch, they both went down. A month or two ago, they both went down. So people are like, what? I'm in a conservative allocation. I thought my money was safe. If it's not guaranteed, it's not necessarily safe. This changed my perspective in 2008 because I had a lot of retirees in conservative allocations, down 20 to 25% conservative allocations. Well, that blew up my categories and a lot of other people's categories because it wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. Now, right now, bonds have come back. Maybe not always fully what they were, but they've come back a lot. But again, anything can happen. If the market comes down again, bonds could come down again. So that asset allocation chart does not guarantee anything. You might be down less if you're more conservative, but there's no guarantee attached to it. Now, some people say, well, I'm in a government bond fund. How can I lose money with that? Well, unless you have an individual bond you bought, like a CD, well, it's a 10-year bond. I have
Savings bond, you mean?
savings bond. Then no big deal. I mean, as long as the government doesn't go broke, okay? You get your money back, you get your interest along the way. But if you're in a bond fund, without getting too complicated about it, those can lose money. And again, we just said the last couple months they did, 2008 they did. So if it's not guaranteed, don't think necessarily I'm okay because I'm in a quote unquote conservative allocation. Jenny, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Great. So going to ask you now, going to have another handout now. So what should you do now, right? Should I sell now at a loss? Okay, because right now the market's still down. So that may be the bottom line question some of you are asking, what do I do now? Okay, we don't know what's going to happen, right? Well, I would say this. My opinion, take it or leave it, talk to your own advisors. Don't make any changes if a couple of things are true. You've got at least 5 years before you need to withdraw the money. Why? It'll probably come back. Doesn't mean it's going to come right back. It might come down. But unless we have some kind of complete financial collapse, the stock market has always come back. If you got at least 5 years, you don't need to touch it. You don't want to sell when it's low. 2, if you can handle any future downturns financially and emotionally, and that's not so easy to do. And I lived through this with a lot of my clients. You can look at a 30-year, 50-year, 100-year chart and go, look what the stock market has done. It always comes back. When you're in the middle of it. In 2008, it felt like, are we heading into a Great Depression? Right? So what happens if in the fall we have another resurge of this virus, or even in the next week or two? Who knows? Right? Other things happen. Could we head into a Great Recession, even a depression? Sure we could. And now that market starts coming down hard, it's pretty hard to hang in there. When it's coming down, 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 you don't know how far it's going to go. So you got to be able to handle it emotionally and financially. Otherwise, my next point is maybe you should not hang in there because you don't want to sell when it's low. Everyone else, you tell you, maybe your advisor will tell you, it's going to come back, it's going to come back. Nobody knows that. We really don't. See, a lot of stories, again, in the year 2000, I started at Merrill Lynch. Mark came down 1 year, and my managers, I was new in the business 20 years ago. 1990s, great surge. Mark came down, and my managers and all the advisors and everybody else were saying, oh, it's going to come back next year. Well, it didn't. 2 years in a row. And they said, oh, it's been down 2 years, it's got to come back. Guess what? It was down worse. So you just can't trust it, you just don't know. So that's something to consider. Don't make any changes. You got at least 5 years, and you can handle any more downturns financially and emotionally. And then, if it does come back, reevaluate. Okay, now, I don't know when it comes back. Let's say it's a year from now, 6 months from now, 3 years from now. Then reevaluate. Do I really want to stay in that risk now that I know what I've gone through? Reevaluate all over again. Make sense? Now, consider selling now if these are true. If you are withdrawing money now or expect to withdraw in the next 5 years and you're concerned that the market might drop more. Well, everyone should have that concern. As we said, we just don't know. Can't assume it's going to rise. If the market dropped again, every senior, whether you're 60 years old or 85, should ask, how would that affect you? And how would you handle emotionally? How would that affect you financially? Would you rather have a bird in the hand versus two in the bush? We all know that phrase. Meaning, I'd rather sell now and be down 10, 15, whatever it is, percent, 20%, and know I've got that, it's not going to drop anymore. Or would you rather, hey, I'm just going to let it go and roll the dice, take my chances? That's a decision everyone's got to make personally. Because again, no one knows the future, no one can really tell you what to do on that. Now, an option, if you're not sure, is to be, okay, well, I'm really torn between what to do. You could sell some of what you have, maybe 25%, maybe 50%, leave the rest there, now you kind of got the best of both worlds. You protected some, you left some more in there, and you're kind of getting a little bit of both.
But you gotta pay taxes on it in a lot of cases.
In a lot of cases, but let's say you're an IRA, and you just sell it, let it sit cash or something else, and you don't have to pay tax on that, of course, unless you're drawing money out. But yes, if you're in a non-qualified or just what we call a brokerage account, look at the taxes. However, for a lot of people, you have to weigh that out, talk to your tax advisor, your CPA, or other financial advisor, kind of weigh out the pros and cons of that in terms of how much tax would be versus how much loss I could possibly. So if you have a long-term capital gains, for instance, some people are in a 0% category, kind of their tax bracket, or if it's long-term, they've held it for over a year, they might pay no tax. You can check with your tax advisor. Well, that's quite a deal. But you may only pay 10%. Well, if you get 10% tax on the gain alone, well, that's nothing to what the whole thing could drop. So that's how you got to weigh that out and really get the math out and so forth and figure out what to do. Now, here's another challenge as far as getting objective advice. My suggestion is it's true of anything, right? Whether you're going for surgery or whatever you're considering, look at all your options, right? And next session we're going to do, which is going to be broadcast on YouTube, is what are the guarantee products available out there for seniors? So we're talking about stock market now. What's available for seniors for guarantee? Whole different subject. Hope you tune in on that and get educated on what's out there and available. We already talked about don't assume the experts are going to be right about anything. And here's the hard thing, and I may step on some toes here possibly, okay? But your financial advisor might be the greatest person on the planet. They might be full of integrity and so forth. But they might be leaning in the direction towards hanging in the stock market, okay? But again, they don't really know. And you might trust them. But I tell people this, well, I trust my CPA, full of integrity, but I can't control their taxes go up. It's not their fault. Yeah, I trust them, it's no offense, but it's how it works. Or I also use this analogy, a lot of people have done this through the years. They love their medical doctor, but they sometimes feel like, I think I might want to try some alternative, some natural thing I heard about, whether it's herbs or something else. And your doctor just may not be well educated in that. He might just lean in a different direction. It doesn't mean they're a bad doctor. They may be a fantastic doctor, but you decide to get some education, and guess what? For some people, that's a good way to go. So it's good to look at all the options. So your advisor may only really be focused on stock market strategies. And the next session that we're going to talk about guaranteed products may not even have some of those available, or just may have a bias against it, okay? Well, it's your money, and you need to get educated yourself and decide what you want to do. And I wouldn't worry about it. I'm just telling you, as general folks out there, if your advisor cares about what's best for you, and you want to protect your money, and you say, listen, I want something guaranteed, then let them show you something guaranteed. If they don't have a good guaranteed product, then go somewhere where you can get it, because it's your money, and they're working for you, you're not working for them. So don't worry if they lose part of their account or some of their account. That's not something that should be your concern. It's really for protecting your money, your retirement, and your income. So that's pretty much what I had to wrap up. Jenny, any other questions or thoughts?
No, I think this has been wonderful, and I look forward to the next meeting that we have. There will be information along with this video on Brian, how you can reach him, as well as how you can reach the Senior Center, and any questions that you might have. We welcome you to come back, and I'm thinking maybe we need to get a CPA in here next time. And maybe not the next time, but the next time
That's a good
we all
idea.
have a back and forth conversation
Sure.
as to maybe where we're seeing things come. But please, we welcome your comments, and we'll see you shortly. Thanks.